Hi, my name is Tomasz Poczytek, and in this video I want to talk about the actionable messages that uses adaptive cards, of course. So this topic of actionable messages, so emails actually containing forms that can be approved or rejected, that can be simply completed directly from the Outlook message, was something that I was thinking about for a longer time, but I actually never had time to create a demo, to create a blog post about it. So finally, after several requests that I received, I decided to make the video about it and to write a blog post where I really deeply describe how you can actually use actionable messages and adaptive cards inside actionable messages. One thing that you have to remember and one thing you have to know is that the actionable messages is a functionality, is a feature, is a technology that only works within Office 365 within Outlook. So if you plan to send this kind of a message, for example, to a Gmail user, then unfortunately they won't be able to use it. So first I'll start from the scenario. I have this small application that is used to scan invoices. So first I'll just upload a scanned invoice, maybe from Fabricant. And right now the AI builder that is trained to identify fields on this template of the invoice, well, it's trying to do the job. So it has identified those fields. Now, once I hit send for approval, this invoice is going to be simply recreated using adaptive cards technology and sent into two channels. So the first one is an adaptive card in Microsoft Teams where someone from a channel has to approve it. But the second one is an adaptive card sent as an actionable message to a user in Outlook. So let me just jump to an Outlook. So right. That is an email of the John researcher, so one of the employees who was sent this actionable message. So that person now sees all the details from the invoice, the items that were present on the invoice as well. So right now they can approve or reject. So let's assume they want to reject. Hit the button reject. And let's just wait a second once the invoice or this message receives a response from the system. Whoops, no, you can't reject the message. You can't reject this invoice without filling in a comment. So the comment seems to be required. But then I'll try to approve it. And in this case, finally, the invoice was approved, the task was completed, and this actionable message that was sent in the first place has been replaced with a new one that shows the confirmation message. And well, actually, that's it. So there were two things here important. The first one was that this data was parsed into an adaptive card that is making the contents of this actionable message, and that it was sent to a different user from the one who actually used the AI builder and the power apps. Now, how was it made in details? So first things first, there is this workflow that is called the adaptive cards approver invoice. And what it does is first it is concatenating all the information from the AI builder to create an adaptive card. There is a different adaptive card that is being sent to Microsoft Teams, different to Outlook. They not only differ by the version they're using, but also the way they, for example, displays the actions. The adaptive card that I want to send is that one. So this is an adaptive card. However, what is also important is that I need to switch here the host app to Outlook so that it now displays properly, plus it displays the actions. So this is the most important difference between the regular adaptive card in version 1.2, for example, that is being used or that is working for Microsoft Teams, and the adaptive cards version 1.0 that is still the only version working under the actionable messages. So just take a look at the actions. The actions here for the actionable message, they actually are built from the method parameter, which is different to adaptive cards 1.2, and what more importantly, they are built from the URL, so the target location where the contents of this form will be sent once user hits approve or rejects buttons, right? So in my case, this is just another workflow in Power Automate. This is this workflow that is being triggered using the when an HTTP request is received. So that's the very simple way of triggering the workflow. And then once it is being triggered, it checks if the comments is empty and the outcome is equal to true, to reject. If that's true, it is simply responding to the actionable message with a response code 406, so not acceptable, and this parameter card action status, which you saw that was displayed above the message. Now, in case everything is correct, so in case the comment is not empty or the outcome is approved, and then what it does, it sends a new response with a card update in body header and just new contents of an adaptive card that is being used to replace the existing one. So this is that simple. Right? So this is why we have those actions. And then the other thing that is very important about those actionable messages and how we are sending them is this originator. If I send this actionable message without this originator, then the Outlook client will not display this adaptive card to any other user than the one who actually sent it. So let me just show you how it is going to work. Now, once I remove this originator value from here, and now I'll try to run this test again. Right, you'll see that my John researcher, he already received that email, but there is no contents, right? Because the Outlook looks for this originator ID. I'll just tell you what this originator ID is in a while. And then in case it is missing, it doesn't know what to do with that. Now, to help you troubleshoot the issues with actionable messages, I recommend you to install this add-in that is called Actionable Message Debugger. Now, this thing here, it will help you to review contents of an adaptive card sent with this message and also troubleshoot issues. So for example, in this case, once I open this actionable message and hit the debugger, I can see that the originator is not set, so that this message is actually missing information about who is the originator. Now, this is very important because this originator is information for Outlook that the sender is actually an authenticated, authorized provider of such messages. So let me go now to Developer Portal. And now, once you attempt to create new provider, you have three options, or three scopes actually to choose from. So you can choose to send these actionable messages only to test users. So like in my case, I was sending this only to John Researcher, or to organization level, or to global level. Now, both organization and test users, they actually don't require you to have any kind of approval from Microsoft, because this is all considered as something sent locally, only to your internal users. Now, if you decide to go to global, then you need actually to get approval from Microsoft, because having this kind of a provider, you'll be actually able to send this actionable message to any user within any tenant inside Office 365. This is very cool, but it's also something that we should possibly try to avoid if you are not sure why are we going to send this. Anyway, in my case, I've created this provider that has a scope test users, and well, there's only the John Researcher who is going to receive those. Therefore, once I copy this provider ID or the originator and then again update this information here, put this parameter, and now send this message again, you'll notice that this time actually John's researcher's Outlook is actually displaying this actionable message because, well, right now the originator ID is not missing and everything is fine. Plus, once I navigate back to my inbox and I open this message and I open the debugger, I can see that everything is fine. I can review the adaptive card code inside. I can also check the diagnostics, right? So in this case, everything is fine according to my internal, let's say, Office 365 policies. That's working. And that's it about, let's say, the security of the sender. So how to check if this is sent. Now, one last important thing that you need to be aware is that once you attempt to send this actionable message to be really displayed as one inside Outlook, you need to put the outcomes, you need to put the JSON of an adaptive card inside this script type application adaptive card JSON. So without that, this JSON is going to be only displayed as a regular text, right? So that's very, let's say, simple, and without it, it won't work. Now, once you add those script tags, then you can actually send this actionable message using the send an email action. Just be sure to switch it into the code mode, into the code layout, not the what you see is what you get layout. All right. So that's the one thing that is really important and you have to be aware of. So that was the first part. That was the part how to send this adaptive card and collect the response in the very, very easy way. But to be honest, when we think about adaptive cards, this is just a regular form. Now, even more once we realize that this regular form is just sending information to this target URL like a plain text. Well, this is just a body being sent, right? This is nothing actually sophisticated. Then actually anyone can create a simple HTML form with a post button, set this URL as a target, and then simply post any kind of information to it, right? Just to follow the pattern of the body. So this is a little bit, let's say, well, that's something we have to have on mind, and that we need to secure our workflow or our host that receives those requests from adaptive cards to not actually handle or even trigger for requests coming from a different source that was sent to, or from different users that it was sent to. Now, one of the ways that we can actually do that is to use a thing or a header that is inside the request coming from actionable message that is called where are you? Action authorization. Now, this action authorization, although it says bearer, it's not a regular Active Directory bearer token, so we can't use it to simply call Graph API and get users context. No, this token is a JWT, so JSON Web Token, and it's built out of three parts. The first part is the header that is displayed here, that simply defines what kind of token it is, what algorithm it is using to decipher the information. And then the second one is a payload. And then in a payload, we have such information as EAT, which is the time when this payload was signed. We have information about app ID. That is very important because this app ID is actually the information that we need to use. It's always having this particular value if it's being sent to Outlook, from Outlook, sorry. And then we also have information about what user actually sent this response. And we have also the information about the user who sent the actionable message in the first place, right? So that's me. Now we also have the information about the ISS, and the instance of the logic apps that was used to trigger this workflow. And lastly, we have information about the expiration date. So when is this payload signature going to expire? Now, if we want to validate that this response is actually coming from that adaptive card that was sent by our workflow, then we need to save this information in the first place somewhere outside the workflow, like Common Data Service or SharePoint, so that once we get this response, we can actually compare if the values coming here are equal to those that were sent. Still, because this bearer token is something that is just a base 64 encoded strings and is actually coming with a header from the adaptive card, therefore this is also something that can be maybe not that easy, but still it can be faked, it can be hacked. So the last thing that we can actually easily do to be sure that our adaptive card is really our adaptive card and the response is coming from it, is to use the attribute that is called the correlation ID. So the correlation ID, like in my case, this is just generated GUID, is sent along with an adaptive card and then is being sent back with the header information. So if we don't know this correlation ID from the first place, we can't actually hack it and fake it to be sent from the other place than the adaptive card. But still here you need to save this GUID somewhere locally, like CDS or Common Data Service. And then once we get the response, this correlation ID is stored in a header parameter called the card correlation ID. So that's again the value that we can use to compare if that response is really coming from an adaptive card, from this actionable message that was sent by us. Lastly, if we are going to an enterprise level, we can as well use the private keys and public keys, so to just cipher sign the message payload, use those DKIM methods, so that we can actually verify if the payload signed with our public key is matching our private key, and therefore be sure that this is actually data coming from the message sent by our system. Last one thing that I wanted to show you is that those actionable messages are also working on my phone. So now once I go to my phone, so that is my phone, and now I'm going to the Outlook. Right. So as you can see, this invoice is also this adaptive card, this actionable message. It is also displaying on my phone, where I can actually approve or reject directly from the phone without the need to navigate anywhere further, right? So that's the last thing I wanted to show you. And well, that is actually it. So by watching this video, you have actually learned how to first send an adaptive card from Power Automate to Outlook, how to get the response from the adaptive card as an actionable message, how to handle it, how to configure the service to let it send those actionable messages to other users than yourself, and fourth, how to actually verify that the response is actually coming from the adaptive card, from the actionable message that was sent by our system in the first place. So knowing this all information, you can now sit down and create your own adaptive cards. You can create your own actionable messages, and then make, again, your workflows, your processes even more comfortable for the users, so they can just directly approve or take an action in those processes from their Outlooks, from Microsoft Teams, however, wherever they want to. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions regarding this video, or if you want to go into details on how it was built, then please navigate to my blog post, because I'm really describing this solution very, very deeply in very high details. And well, thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Hope to see you again in the next videos somewhere, sometime. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.